The journey to Star Trek 4 has been anything but smooth. While fans were thrilled when the next installment, starring Chris Pine and the beloved crew, was announced back in February 2022, the road since then has been filled with delays, rewrites, and more than a few surprising turns. So what does that leave us today? Let's break down everything we know about the long-awaited return of the Enterprise crew, Star Trek 4. How it all started. Let's rewind to the beginning. Paramount actually began planning the fourth film way back in June 2015, before Star Trek Beyond even hit theatres. Confident in the franchise, they moved fast to secure the return of key cast members. Like Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto, both actors scored pay bumps to reprise their iconic roles as Kirk and Spock, which signaled the studio was serious about keeping the Kelvin timeline crew together. Then came the first real spark of excitement. In July 2016, producer J.J. Abrams dropped a bombshell. Chris Hemsworth was returning to play George Kirk, James T. Kirk's father. If you remember the 29 reboot, George Kirk died heroically in the film's opening moments. The new idea? A wild, time-twisting story that somehow brings him back into the mix. Writers J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, who had previously helped polish the Beyond script, were tasked with crafting this emotional and adventurous storyline. For over 2 years, they developed a story where the Enterprise crew stumbles upon George Kirk, saved at the last second by the ship's transporter. But in the midst of the excitement, tragedy struck. In June 2016, Anton Yelchin, who played the beloved Pavel Chekhov, died in a tragic accident. It hits the cast and the fans alike hard. J.J. Abrams made it clear they would not recast Chekhov. Anton was irreplaceable. The remaining cast, Simon Pegg, Zoe Saldana, Carl Urban, and Jong Cho, were expected to return, but things started to stall. While deals were in the works, nothing was locked in, and the momentum began to fade. Quentin Tarantino's idea. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, came one of the wildest developments in the franchise's history. Quentin Tarantino. In late 2017, the legendary director pitched his own Star Trek idea, and it was nothing like what came before. Tarantino was a long-time Trekkie and had a bold vision rooted in the classic episode, A Piece of the Action, where the crew encounters a planet imitating 1920s gangster Earth. It was stylish, edgy, and very Tarantino. Paramount jumped at the chance. A writer's room was assembled with Mark L. Smith eventually chosen to pen the script. Tarantino described his take as Pulp Fiction in space, and shockingly, the studio was willing to let it be R-rated, a first for Star Trek. He wanted Pine and Quinto involved, but he wasn't thrilled about working within the Kelvin timeline. Abrams reportedly told him to forget the timeline issue and just make the film he wanted. According to Smith, the project had a tone similar to Thor, Ragnarok, playful, wild, and visually inventive. The A rating wasn't about profanity or gore, but more about pushing creative boundaries. However, by late 2019, Tarantino started stepping back, unsure about directing the film himself. By early 2020, he was officially out, but gave his blessing if someone else wanted to take it forward. While that version sat in limbo, Paramount tried a different route. In April 2018, they brought on S.J. Clarkson to direct, making her the first woman to ever helm a Star Trek film. Her version used a script that featured George Kirk's dramatic return. Think Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, but in space, with father and son reconciling amid galaxy-spanning chaos. But once again, things hit a wall. By August 2018, both Chris Hemsworth and the writers had exited. The studio, wary after Star Trek Beyond underperformed at the box office, tried to trim costs, including the actors' paychecks. Yeah, that didn't go over well. The project quietly fizzled, and by January 2019, it was officially shelved. Then, a glimmer of hope appeared in November 2019, when Fargo and Legion creator Noah Hawley stepped in with a fresh vision. He wanted to start from scratch, new story, new characters, a bold new chapter for Star Trek. It sounded promising, and Hawley even attracted big names like Kate Blanchett and Rami Malek, planning to shoot the film in Australia. But fate had other plans. When Emma Watts took over as president of Paramount in August 2020, she hit pause on everything. One big reason? Hawley's script involved a galaxy-threatening virus which felt a little too on the nose given the real-world pandemic unfolding at the time. The new hope for Star Trek IV, vision change, and the cast's evolving journey. After years of uncertainty, Star Trek IV found a new pulse in July 2021 when Matt Shakman, hot off his success directing Marvel's WandaVision, stepped in to take the reins. Alongside him, writers Lindsay Beer and Geneva Robertson Dorrit began crafting a fresh script that seemed to breathe new energy into the stalled project. Things picked up fast, and by February 2022, Paramount made a big move. They announced that the original Kelvin timeline cast would return for the next movie. Then, there was just one catch. They hadn't told the actors yet. Despite the slightly awkward detail, the studio was ready to go all in. Streaming was changing the game, and Paramount needed Star Trek to fuel the growth of their platform, Paramount Plus. To make it happen, they were prepared to open their wallets. Chris Pine alone was reportedly set to earn $13 million for his return as Captain Kirk. The message was clear. This wasn't just a movie. It was a key part of Paramount's long-term plan. But not everyone was convinced that bigger meant better. Pine shared his own vision for the future of Star Trek. Rather than chasing Marvel-sized budgets or massive box office expectations, he believed the franchise needed to return to its roots. That meant smaller, smarter storytelling focused on the fans, on character, legacy, and heart, not just spectacle. Then came another twist. In August 2022, just as it seemed like things were actually coming together, Shakman left the project to direct Marvel's upcoming Fantastic Four reboot. Yeah, the loss was significant, and with no director in place, Paramount quietly removed the film from its release calendar. Longtime Star Trek veteran Jonathan Frakes even offered to step in and direct, but nothing official ever came of it. Now, by the end of 2023, after a long Hollywood writers' strike finally wrapped, Paramount took a step back, reassessed its strategy. In January 2024, the studio laid out a much bigger plan, not just for Star Trek IV, but for an entire slate of new films. One of them would be a prequel set long before the events of the 2009 reboot, exploring the very origins of Starfleet and the galaxy we've come to love. At the same time, Steve Yockey was brought in to pen what's been described as the final chapter in the current film series. This new approach comes with a big shift in mindset. Instead of pouring massive amounts of money into one movie, the studio is aiming for tighter budgets and more focused storytelling. The goal is to deliver quality films that serve both long-time Trekkies and new audiences, while also growing the Star Trek universe across platforms, including streaming projects like the upcoming Section 31 film. And in May 2024, Paramount took another big step by bringing in Simon Kinberg, known for steering the X-Men film franchise, to help oversee the future of Star Trek on the big screen. With Kinberg on board, there's new hope that the various film ideas in development, including Star Trek IV, might finally take off. What the casts are saying, but beyond the studio's plans, it's the original cast that's been keeping the torch burning. As time passes, they've become more reflective and vocal about what Star Trek means to them and what they hope the next chapter could look like. Chris Pine, now 44, has emerged as a thoughtful leader among the cast. At a fan convention in San Antonio, he spoke about the importance of scaling things back, prioritizing strong stories over special effects and keeping the core audience in mind. He's not against epic action, but he believes Star Trek should feel personal again. Zachary Quinto, who continues to embrace his role as Spock, offered a similar take. At 47, he sees no reason why the crew can't continue exploring the galaxy as they age. After all, the original cast boldly went into the 50s and 60s. For Quinto, age isn't a limitation. It's a chance to tell richer, more meaningful stories. Zoe Saldana too wants to see growth. She advocated for giving Uhura more depth and leadership opportunities, moving beyond her traditional role in communications. She's also interested in revisiting the relationship between Uhura and Spock, exploring how it's evolved over time. Even Simon Pegg, who co-wrote Star Trek Beyond in addition to playing Scotty, has spoken from the heart. For him, any reunion with the cast would be deeply emotional, especially in the wake of Anton Yelchin's tragic passing. Yelchin's absence is still felt by a lot of them, and Pegg's comments reflect just how close this ensemble has become over the years. Their bond goes far beyond the screen. So, what does this leave Star Trek for? Still in development, still surrounded by question marks, but also still alive, with a passionate cast, a studio rethinking its strategy, and a galaxy of stories waiting to be